The first night, the three knocks came from the end of the driveway, the next night from the front walk, the night after that from the porch steps. Every night, three slow knocks, and every night a little closer to my door. I did the math the way you'd dread doing it, and I knew that in 4 more nights, whatever was knocking would finally be close enough to knock on the door itself. Welcome back. It's just you and me in the dark tonight. 3 true stories about a sound we've all heard and told ourselves was nothing. The knock in the night. The one you don't answer. The one that sometimes doesn't need you to. Let's begin. I live alone at the end of a quiet road in a small house with a long gravel driveway and a lot of dark around it. I've always liked the quiet. I'm telling you that because I want you to understand that I'm not a person who scares easily, and I'm not a person who imagines sounds. When you live somewhere this still, you learn every noise the place makes. You learn the difference between the house settling and a footstep. And what started happening at 3 in the morning was not the house. The first night, I woke up at exactly 3. I didn't know why at first, and then I heard it. 3 knocks. Slow, evenly spaced. Knock, knock, knock. But they were far away, muffled. And it took me a moment, lying there with my heart picking up to place the distance. They'd come from the very end of the driveway, 40 yards off, down by the road. 3 knocks on nothing. There's nothing to knock on down there, no gate, no post, just the mouth of my driveway and the dark. I lay still and listened for a long time, and nothing else came. Eventually, I told myself it was a dream, the tail end of one, and I went back to sleep. The next night, 3 a.m., I woke again. And again, the 3 knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Same slow spacing, but closer now. Not down at the road anymore. Halfway up the drive. Maybe 20 yards from the house. Clear enough that I couldn't pretend it was a dream. I got up and I looked out every window and I saw nothing. Just my gravel drive, pale in the moonlight. Empty. But I knew what I'd heard. And I barely slept the rest of that night. The third night, I was already awake at 3, waiting for it, dreading it. And it came. 3 knocks. From the front walk now, the short path right up to my porch, 10 yards from where I was lying. And that's when I did the math I told you about, and my stomach dropped. Because it was moving, a little closer every night. The road, the driveway, the walk. Whatever this was, it was coming up my property, 3 knocks at a time, 1 night at a time, in no hurry at all. And if it kept the pace, I could count the nights on one hand until it reached my door. I started sleeping with every light in the house burning. I don't know what I thought that would do. A light has never stopped anything, but the dark had become unbearable. Because the dark was where the counting happened. I'd lie there in the blaze of every lamp I owned and watch the clock crawl toward 3. And I'd feel my whole body clench as it got close. And every night, at 3 exactly, the knocks would come from wherever they'd reached the night before. It was the reliability of it that wore me down the most. It never skipped a night. It never came early or late. It was as patient and certain as a tide. and it was coming in. I called the police the next morning. They took a report, did a drive-by, found nothing. No footprints in the gravel, no sign of anyone. What could they do? A person hears knocking. There's no law against a sound. I set up a camera pointed at the driveway. That night, 3 a.m., the knocks came from the porch steps, 5 feet from my front door now. And I lunged for the camera feed, and the driveway was empty, the walk was empty, the porch steps were empty. But the audio on the camera had picked it up clear as anything. 3 knocks, coming from a porch with nothing on it. The next night, the knocks came from the door, my front door. 3 slow, heavy knocks right there, a few feet from my head through the wall, rattling the frame. It had arrived, and I lay in my bed, rigid, not breathing. And I did the one thing every instinct in me screamed to do, which was nothing. I did not get up. I did not answer it. I just waited, and eventually the knocking stopped, and the night went quiet, and somehow I made it to morning. I thought that was the worst of it. The knock at the door. I was wrong, because the pattern didn't stop when it reached the door. It kept going. It kept getting closer. The following night, at 3, the 3 knocks did not come from the front door. They came from my bedroom door, inside the house, down the hall, but inside. Whatever had spent all those nights crossing my yard had crossed my threshold, and now it was knocking from the hallway on the other side of my bedroom door. I moved out that week. I broke my lease and I left furniture behind, and I did not care. And I never found out what it was or what it wanted or what would have happened on the night after that. The night the knocking would have finally been close enough to come from the one place left for it to go. The inside of my bedroom, the foot of my bed. That knocking never got the chance to come inside. The next woman's already had. It had found its way into the one place she thought was still hers alone. Her own private thoughts answered back to her, folded under the doormat. She'd been getting knocks at night too. At her apartment door, late, always 3 of them, and never anyone in the hall when she checked. She'd gotten almost used to it, in the uneasy way you get used to a thing you can't explain. But then one morning she found a note under her doormat, a folded square of paper, and on it, in careful handwriting, was a single sentence. Yes, you did leave the stove on. And her blood went cold, because the night before, lying in bed, she'd had one of those sudden anxious jolts. The thought out of nowhere, did I leave the stove on? She'd been too tired to get up and check. She'd just laid there and worried about it, and eventually fallen asleep. She had never said it out loud. She had never texted it, or written it, or told a soul. It had been a thought, a private thought, in her own head in the dark. And now it was answered in handwriting under her mat. She told herself it was a coincidence, a neighbor's prank, a note meant for someone else, anything. And then the notes kept coming. Every few days, after a night of knocking, another folded square under the mat, and every one of them answered something she had only thought. No, he isn't going to call you back. You should check the lump, you've been putting it off. The dream you keep having means exactly what you think it means. Things she had turned over privately in the dark and told no one. Each one answered patiently in that same careful hand and slipped under her door in the night. She tried to test it once. She lay in bed and deliberately thought a lie. She thought as clearly and loudly as she could, "I'm going to move to the coast next week." A thing that wasn't true, that she had no plans to do, invented purely to see. And the next morning, there was a note under the mat, in that same careful hand, and it said, "No, you're not. And you know you're not. Don't lie to me inside your own head. It's the one place I can always hear you." After that, she stopped testing it. After that, she spent her nights trying and failing and trying again not to think at all, which, if you have ever attempted it, is its own particular kind of madness. It's a specific kind of horror, being known like that. It's worse than being watched, because you can close the curtains against being watched. There's no curtain for the inside of your own head. She stopped being able to think freely in her own apartment. She'd catch herself mid-thought and flinch, wondering if it would be answered. She felt like she was sharing her own mind with a stranger who was politer than she could stand. The last note she ever found was different. It didn't answer a question. It asked one. It was folded under the mat like all the others, in the same hand, and it said, "You keep wondering if I'm real. Leave your door unlocked tonight, and you'll know for sure." She did not leave the door unlocked. She packed a bag and went to her sister's and never spent another night in that apartment. But she told me the thing that still gets her, the thing she can't put down. The note knew she'd been wondering if it was real, which meant right up to the very end, it was still answering the questions she only thought, even the question of whether to believe in it at all. It's one thing to be answered, it's another thing entirely to simply be looked at. The last story tonight is about a peephole, the little glass eye we all trust to tell us who's out there, and exactly what it means the one night it goes dark and stays that way. He lived in a city apartment, 3rd floor, solid door, good deadbolt, and one night late he heard someone in the hallway outside his door, not knocking, just there, the small sounds of a person standing on the other side. So he did what any of us would do. He got up quietly and he put his eye to the peephole to see who it was. And the peephole was black, just black. No hallway, no light, nothing. The way a peephole looks when someone is standing directly against it on the other side, their body or their face pressed right up to the glass, blocking it out completely. Someone was standing at his door in the dark hall, close enough to be touching the wood, with their face an inch from the little lens he was looking through. He couldn't see them, but the blackness meant they were there. He backed away from the door. He didn't say anything. He checked the deadbolt, locked, and he stood in his little entryway, staring at that dark spot of a peephole, and he waited for it to clear, for whoever it was to step back, to move on, to let the light of the hallway come back through, and it didn't. The peephole stayed black, for an hour, for 2, all night. Every time he crept back and checked, the little glass eye was dark. Someone was still standing there, pressed against his door, in the dark, not knocking, not speaking, not leaving, just standing, face to the glass for hours. He called the police around 4 a.m, whispering, and they came, and he heard them in the hallway, and he heard them knock, a normal knock, an officer's knock, and he looked through the peephole, and it was clear now. He could see them, 2 officers, the empty hall behind them. Whoever had been there was gone. The police found no one, of course. An empty hallway, a locked building, nothing to report. But here's the part he could never explain and never got past. Because it happened again. The next night and the next. Every night, late, the peephole would go black and stay black for hours. Someone standing there all night, face to the glass. And he realized after a while that he'd started to be able to feel it. That he'd wake at the same hour with the certainty that if he looked, it would be dark. He stopped looking. He put tape over the peephole from the inside so he wouldn't have to see the black. But covering it only moved the fear an inch. Because now he couldn't see the hallway at all, and his own mind filled that black glass with things far worse than his eyes ever could. He'd lie awake and picture the other side of that little lens. The face pressed to it, the patience of it, the hours it was apparently willing to spend standing in an empty hall for the chance that he might look. And he started to hear things through the door that he couldn't be sure were real. The faint fog of breathing, the soft creak of weight shifting from one foot to the other, and the worst thought of all, the one that held him rigid until dawn most nights, that it wasn't standing there waiting to be seen. It was standing there waiting for him to open the door. And that was worse somehow, because then he'd just lie there and imagine the hallway side of it. The face pressed to the glass, waiting for him to peel the tape back and look. He moved, eventually, like they all do. And on his last night, packing, he did something he had promised himself he never would. At 3 a.m, when the certainty came, he crept to the door, and he peeled back the tape, and he looked, and the peephole was black. Of course it was. But this time, as he watched, holding his breath, the blackness moved, just slightly, the way a face moves when it tilts, when it adjusts, when, after all those nights of a man refusing to look, it finally feels an eye appear on the other side of the glass and begins, at last, to look back. That's all for tonight. If this one's got you side-eyeing your own front door, then you know exactly what to do. Subscribe and hit that bell, because there's a brand new true horror story here every single night, and you don't want to be the one who misses it. Give this a like so it finds the next person lying awake in the dark, and share it with someone who never checks who's knocking. I'll be right here tomorrow night when the lights go down. Sleep well if you can.
Like, share, and subscribe for daily horror stories every single day.